Hey, good morning. The sun has gone from here, but the rain is really happy about the grass is really happy about the rain. And I just wanted to share with you something that I've been doing with a few people at this time. It's kind of evolved over the COVID period. And I guess for me, that kind of is partly what this time is about, is how can we evolve and what do our changing needs demand? And our kind of time feels like it's changing in terms of lots of us are working online or there's other family members around, and so that kind of traditional coaching, which I obviously still offer at the kind of 1 hour chunk, um, hasn't really fitted for some people because either it's quite hard for them to find a chunk of time where they're free of kind of where they've got that privacy for an hour, and also then trying to find a time that also works for me for the same reason. So what I've been doing, and actually I've kind of been doing this for a couple of years by writing, is asynchronous. And I kind of like the pun on that, so asynchrony, because synchronicity is what Jung talked about as when things just happen at the right time for the right reason. And it feels a bit like this with this idea. So I'm going to call it asynchronous connection, because what I've been finding is another element. So let's just explain the idea to you. So the idea is that we form a contract. We do that in discussion with what you think you need and how much time and in what way. And so it's an open discussion, and then we contract a kind of monthly retainer. And so that can be as little as much as you think you need financially and time-wise. So kind of it's got that flexibility, which I think is really important at this particular moment. But then for that fee, you get my time that we've agreed in an asynchronous way. So what that means is that, for example, you might halfway through your day find that you come across a problem either at work or at home, and you just want to kind of bounce that idea around, or you want to hear yourself say it out loud, or you want to take some reflection time, but know that it's a reflection time that you're going to be able to share with someone else. So you might get in touch with me by email, or by if we're in contact on one of the social media places, by a message, or a thing that's really been working is WhatsApp Messenger. So when you voice record, and part of why it's working for people is that the kind of sometimes you solve your own problems by writing things out or by saying them out loud to yourself. You kind of go, oh, okay. And so actually then the kind of input you need from me is minimal, but there is something I've found, and I've kind of done a bit of this through writing, is it's really important to me that somebody else is going to receive it. So when I've tried just journaling and not sending it out or voice recording, it doesn't have that same sense for me of I'm engaging with someone who's going to hold this information for me, and knowing that that's a safe and confidential space. So you write your message, and it might be just a quick, oh, what do I do about this, or have you got any good resources on that, or is there a YouTube clip I can watch on this? And so obviously in that case I'm just going to shoot you that stuff back, and so that's not really coaching, that's information signposting. Or it may be that you've got something that's kind of going around your head at 3 o'clock in the morning, and obviously I'm not going to be coaching you at that time, but you want to go down and leave a voicemail message for me. I always have my phone switched off at night, but then in the morning I pick that up, I listen to it, and then I can leave a message for you. I'm an early morning message leaver when I'm on my walk, and so then that's waiting for you. And so the thing about this that's really working, I think, is that people leave messages in a way that suits them, for the length of time that suits them, in places that suit them, when it's really live, so when it's in the moment for them. Because I've had the experience before where I'm like in an urgent crisis, but I can't get a session with my coach kind of a few days, maybe a week, and by the time I get to the coaching session, the kind of crisis is past. What you get back from me is obviously, I have then time. I only pick up those messages and deal with those messages when I've got a headspace for that. So if I'm in the middle of cooking tea, I'm not, even if you WhatsApp me, then I've got family around, I'm not going to answer it then. But when I do answer it, you've got my full attention, just as you would in a coaching session, and that I'm going to have the opportunity to reflect on that and kind of give you my best thoughts. Of course, this works brilliantly. I've kind of done some work at this time. It doesn't matter what time zone we're in. If you're in one part of the world and I'm in a different part of the world, that doesn't matter because we're asynchronous. It suits you, me. And you can also kind of draw on your type of self-expression. So I've certainly been writing stuff to another coach, and she kind of reflects back to me just little bits here and there, patterns that she notices. But also, of course, what that means is I've got documentation of my own kind of thought processes that I can think back on, and I can look at patterns and see things there. And the same with the WhatsApp messages. I can hear myself thinking out loud if I've been WhatsApp messaging in return. So just on the kind of data protection side of things, if we were in a WhatsApp conversation, then I would clear my end of that chat so that it's not held on my phone. So your voice recording would be deleted as soon as I'd replied to it on my phone. And similarly, if you were to email me something over, then once I'd replied to it, I wouldn't save that on my computer. Okay, so that's how I'd kind of protect your privacy there. So I still provide the holding space, but it feels like a much more spontaneous, kind of fluid, flexible way of working. And it's there might be coaching, it might be, oh, can you help me, I'm stuck on this, I'm not feeling motivated about that, and then that might be a coaching thing. And it may be that it's something that we do need to do on the phone at the same time, but then we kind of contract for that separately. But it may be that there's just some mentoring. I might say, well, try this, here's a meditation technique, or have a go at that, or read this, or I might be able to just reflect back what I've heard you say and spot out patterns, or remind you of something that you've said or written in the past, and I'd be able to reflect that back to you. So there'd kind of be those sorts of things. It's a bit of a sounding board. So you could say, well, what do you think about this? Could I do this? Can you see any strengths or weaknesses in that? And obviously I'd give you feedback. It may be that you leave me a message just saying, oh, I'm so completely frazzled, and I could suggest some mindfulness and talk you through a kind of mindfulness meditation. Or equally, I might signpost you to a mindfulness meditation, or I might decide that I'm going to make you something special, that I'm going to, kind of as part of our contract, we've agreed that you're going to do YouTube, or I'll use YouTube there. So the idea is that it would be brief but spontaneous. If we need to do bigger chunks of work like the coaching, then we can do. But the initial conversation between the two of us when we're working this out is, well, how much time do you think you might need? And then I'll tell you about that. So just to be completely transparent, my kind of hourly rate at the moment it's £60 an hour. So that's £1 a minute. So for example, you could really go in at 10 minutes, 15 minutes a month. And then you could see how that went. And then that would buy you kind of, you'd leave me messages, and the idea would be that I'd spend 15 minutes on you. So that would include listening to your messages and replying to any emails. Or you might decide that you want to do half an hour. So that would be £30. And then you use that as you want to. It might be, that actually that's, you leave a couple of minutes of message and I leave a couple of minutes, and that's about 5 minutes. And obviously what I don't want to get into doing is being pedantic about, I'm not going to have timers on how long it took me to answer emails, or if we're leaving voice messages, we'll have a ballpark idea of how long those things have lasted. But to be really transparent about that process, if you get to the end of a month and, or if I'm getting halfway through the month and I think, oh, actually, we're kind of at our limit, then I'll let you know that, and you can think about whether you want to pay a bit more that month or just stop there. And again, that's part of I think, a new way of working, being a bit more flexible, a bit more transparent, a bit more kind of responsive to what people need at that time. So it's not going to be for everybody, because some people like that certainty of an hour, and they like the certainty of this is kind of what I'm going to get in return. And I know we're living with lots of uncertainty. So obviously the normal coaching is on offer there, as well as any mindfulness stuff you want. But this might just suit some of you that want little bits and pieces, want it to be a bit more flexible, a bit more agile, a bit more spontaneous. and maybe using some of the media, the more modern media that might suit you. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, and I just offer it out there for you. Have a good day.